You guys just saw a video on this 05 RCSB. You're in for a treat. Let's get started. So for those of you who are new to this truck, we just actually did a video on this one where I bought it sight unseen, and in some ways it was a disaster. Actually had the guys in the shop and actually Hoovy checked it over, and everyone that looked at it gave me the thumbs down. There's a link in the description to go see that video if you haven't seen it already. But this is the 2005 Chevy Silverado with the 4.8, and it was in rough shape. If you want to see how rough, also go see that video. I got kind of carried away. Mrs. Wizard definitely wasn't happy that I bought this thing, and then now I've got a lot of it apart before we could get some filming done, and I kind of got ahead of myself, and she wasn't happy about that either. But it looks like everything's pretty well intact here. Let's take a look from another angle. Ta-da! What do you think, Mrs. Wizard?
And this is supposed to impress me.
It probably wouldn't impress much of anyone right now.
It doesn't look very drivable.
At the moment, it's not. Grimes actually made fun of this thing for being what he called a cat eye, and he said the people that usually purchase these are dubious characters. Well, it's no longer a cat eye, and I don't know that it ever will be again. I'll tell you more about that in a minute. I was going to fix some panels and get this thing fixed up, and as I was actually taking stuff apart, I got to thinking. I was like, this engine could go into the Malibu. And I have another engine that's been sitting around for a while that would be perfect to fit into this. A lot of people have done this swap. That's right, guys, it's on the ground now. It currently has the Jag V12 in it and also the Jaguar version of the 4L80E. We're going to be pulling this engine and transmission out and saving it for a future project. It just makes sense to LS swap this. No, it's not an LS1 or an LS2 or 3 or 4. It's an LS-based 4.8 out of that truck. I can either fix the 4L60 that's in that truck or just put a TH350 behind this one, and it would be a running and driving Malibu. It would just accelerate this project so fast. You can get an LS swap harness for like 80 bucks now. It's insanely cheap. And this thing would be fun. It would be a hoot. Those 4.8s actually rev really high if you set them up right. They're a really fun engine. This originally came with a 327 that revved pretty well, and this will be a very similar situation here with a 4.8. I really hate giving up on the V12 swap on this. I always thought, you know, at a certain time of the year when the shop slows down, business slows, I'll have some time to work on it. And years have gone by, and there's not been any slow times. We've been busy every month, every season, non-stop, which is good. I definitely am not going to complain about that. But it's time to just LS swap this thing, finish out the interior enough to make it running and driving in a fun vehicle, and then we will probably sell it. But at least it will be a finished project, running and driving. We will save the V12 for a future project. I'm not sure what yet. But let's head back over to the truck. Like I mentioned, when I was taking things apart, I kept staring at this engine and I was like, this is what belongs in the Malibu. It will make it run again. And there's a swap that's been going around on Tahoes, Yukons, Suburbans, and also half-ton short bed regular cabs that's very popular. And unlike the Malibu, it does not require cutting and hacking and a lot of major modifications. In fact, although it was a 3/4 ton, this engine I'm about to show you came out of one of these. They'll be basically bolt-in. I can bolt in the motor mounts. There'll be some slight modifications, but 80 to 90% of it will be just very, very simple. Let's head on over to the engine. This that has magically appeared in front of you is an LB7 Duramax diesel. I actually have several engines sitting around the shop. I have a couple trailers and things. I have spare engines. I actually have a 12-valve Cummins sitting right over there. I have Mercedes diesels. And I've had this one for quite a while. When I got it, it came with the ECM. It has the charge air pipes, all the accessories, the AC compressor, the turbo. Everything is included with this engine. I don't have to go out and buy other parts. Now let's take a look at the back end of this engine. Like I mentioned, this came out of a Chevy truck, and you can see the transmission bell housing bolt pattern here. It can have an Allison. You could put a TH400 behind this. You can put a 4L80E, which is what I'm going to do. A beefed up 4L80E will match up to this, and it will be able to handle the power. As long as I don't turn the power up on this engine, which I'm not going to do. I'm just going to leave it stock. Let me show you the motor mounts to this thing. Right in here you can see, oh sorry, I probably flashed you. There's 3 bolts, 1, 2, and 3 for this LS motor. This is the style of mount that it uses. Now let's take a look at a Duramax mount. Oh look, 1, 2, and 3. There will be a minor little shift on the passenger side to get that mount to line up, but most of this swap is going to be bolt-in. There'll be some wiring and things I have to do to tie into the rest of the systems, but no welding, no cutting. You just set the motor down into there and set this motor into the Malibu. Now, as you see, I have quite a bit apart. I'm going to go ahead and remove the other fender real quick. You guys can watch me do that. We're going to remove a lot of things around the front clip. That'll make it very easy to get engines in and out without a bunch of trouble. So far I have several bolts of this fender off. I've taken the wheel liner down, moved this surge tank out of the way, and also the air box is out. Fortunately, I can put everything in the bed of the truck. I have a few more bolts and we'll be taking this fender off. So I got all the bolts off. Now it's time to take this fender off the truck. There we go. All right. So I'll go get this fender liner out of the way. Set it aside as well. If you're taking a fender off, it might be helpful to have a buddy help you take it off in case it might be kind of heavy or something. But just make sure you get all the bolts and everything that's supposed to come off out of the way, because there's a lot of little tricky hidden bolts and things that you could say, well, why isn't this thing coming off? And you try to pry it and it could break. So make sure you have everything disconnected. And usually there's lots of little clips and things and harnesses clipped to them. So make sure to get all those. The core support right here is mounted to the frame. So it's a little wiggly, but it's not going to fall over or anything. Now we have easy access to the engine and all the pieces inside. And I can easily pull out this LS motor, cart it over to the Malibu, which will be more videos on that now. It'll be coming off and getting an LS swap. And it'll make plenty of room to put in the Duramax. If you're doing an engine swap, especially if you have a really nice vehicle, you don't want to scratch the sides or anything, sometimes it can be easier to just remove the fenders and the grille and everything out of the way, so you don't risk dropping something on them or dragging something across the paint and scratching it, or something falling or rubbing on it. Also, just like I just showed you, it is so much easier. You can get in here and just, basically you could sit on a mechanic stool or a little chair or something, and you could just sit here and work. It makes it so much less stressful. So this is going to be a series you guys can follow along with. Also, there'll be some videos going on with the Malibu. We have bus videos. We have all kinds of things going on that are not just everyday reviews of cars. You guys know that I like to keep things stock, or at least looking stock. When I put this Duramax in, which by the way is the LB7 300 horsepower, 520 pound-feet of torque, it is one of the first generation of Duramaxes to come out, and I'm going to be leaving it that way. I'm not going to tune up the power, or turn up the power as they call it, and blow black smoke all over the place. It's just going to be actually more fuel efficient. I've been following a guy online who actually did this swap, and on the highway he was literally getting 26 or 27 miles per gallon. That's just amazing. That's one of the things that's driving me to do it as well, and also it'll have a lot of power. It'll be a fun little hot rod truck. It'll look really cool. I've always wanted a regular cab short bed and finally got to get one without spending $20,000 to buy one. If you watched the previous video, me and Hoovie talked about that. He recently sold one and he did get that kind of money. They're very expensive to get one of these short beds because they're so desirable. So once I get to the finishing part of this process with this truck, it will no longer be that ugly truck that everyone frowned at and gave the thumbs down and are like, why did you buy this thing? Ugh. And it'll turn into be a truck that's like, wow, that is so cool. I'll take it to Cars and Coffee and whatnot. And people will be like, this is amazing. This is really cool. We'll go over some of the details, radiator and other things. I'm going to have to do some small changes, but like I said, it's not going to be major cutting and welding and anything like that. So check out Mrs. Wizard's Way in the description below. Check out her video. She actually just did a review on her Levante. You definitely want to check that out. If you're curious what kind of tools that I just used or that we used here in the shop, check my Amazon affiliates link in the description below. We get a small cut and we really appreciate it. And you definitely want to hit the subscribe button to this channel because you want to keep up with what's going on with this, updates on the Malibu, the bus. There's all kinds of cool things going on. Thanks for watching.